Hey guys, welcome to D4D Stage 1, and the party that I'm using here will be Raines, Rem and Serah. First off, I have to say I think I severely underestimated the difficulty of this stage. This stage is a direct copy of the 6 Warrior Quest Area 6 in terms of mechanics and enemies. The only difference that I can see is that the bosses have 225 million HP as opposed to the 250 million HP in the 6 Warrior Quest. However, of course, in D4D you can only use 3 characters as opposed to 6, which makes this fight actually more challenging than the 6 Warrior version. Due to the mechanics, I think the best approach to this stage is to just no boss turn it. That way you don't have to deal with the instant KO attack from boss B, and you don't have to worry about the healing from boss A. There are of course several other mechanics that are rather annoying on this stage. The chief of which I think is at 49% on each boss they will cleanse all their debuffs and attempt to dispel your buffs. The best way to get around that is to use the Rydia LD call to give everyone 3 turn evasion. That way you can actually evade the buff dispel from the bosses. However, they will still proceed to cleanse all their debuffs. So the adjustment to that is to try to build a party that can no boss turn it, and also have BT and call auras that you can stack to enable you to push out damage without relying too much on debuffs on the enemies. Serah seems a bit counterintuitive here because a lot of her auras are tied to debuffs, but the combination of Serah and Rem's BT auras will enable you to very easily cap out your Brave even if the enemies have no debuffs. Plus, I think Serah is a very good FRBT character. One of the key things that you need in this stage is echoes on everyone if you want to get this done in one force time. Finally, the enemy's force time is rather crippling because in their force time you will self-delay by 2 turns anytime you take an action, and that will make the no boss turn extremely difficult to achieve. So to win the FR race, I'm going to pop summon early. With regards to the pre-summon phase, the key thing that you want to set up here is to try to charge your force gauge a little bit with Rem's Cure so that you can start summon at a relatively high force gauge. And the other thing, as you can see right here, that is very important is to enter both Rem and Serah's BT plus before you pop summon. Now I am about to pop summon, but one thing I want to mention right here, at 70% the boss will use Bubble Shot plus. This attack is preventable, but the way to prevent it is just too challenging for this party, so I just decided to just tank the attack, and as you can see it is survivable. This attack will reduce all your buff duration by 5 turns except for the Rydia LD call because that buff has no duration. But it doesn't matter too much because I am popping summon here, and this allows you the room inside summon to not only charge the rest of your force gauge but also of course refresh all the buffs on your party. There is one thing though, I didn't really have the opportunity to use the Kate Sieve LD call. Inside summon, the turn order is a little bit important. The key is that you want Raines to get a turn somewhere near the end of summon mode. It's not too challenging to get that because you still have the turn manipulation from Rem, so don't worry too much about the turns, but you do have to sort of take note so that when you're near the end of summon, try to sort of position Raines so that he gets the last 1 or 2 turns. The first 3-4 turns inside summon mode, like I said, it's key to try to use abilities that refresh the buffs on your party. That way you can exit summon mode sort of fully functional. I'm back at Raines' turn, and unfortunately he doesn't have the last 2 turns inside summon mode, which is what I wanted. So what I did here is use his S2 to pull Rem's turn back, and then Rem can swap turns with him so that Raines get the last turn in summon mode. Now, because the bosses are very close to 100% force gauge, you want to try to use the Lunafreya LD call somewhere near the end of summon mode. The call here is to enable Sid Raines to get multiple turns so that he can go BT plus and then immediately into FR. Since I still have a little bit of room here, I decided to risk it a little bit. I did his S1 again just to refresh the buff one more time. On hindsight, I think a better use would be EX here, because I forgot that his EX overhead is about to expire. So that is one mistake, and I would recommend to use EX here because I think I used his S1 earlier in summon mode. Anyway, go into BT plus and then immediately go into FR, and that will freeze the boss's force gauge. Now, looking back at this section of the fight, I think it is a bit less optimal. What I did here is obviously use one FR with Raines to start the force time, but I also used one FR with Rem and one FR with Serah. I think on hindsight, what is probably better is to try to save the two FRs with Rem. Maybe use one Echo with Rem, it's not too bad. But what you want to do is have Rem pull Serah's turn back and have Serah use both of her FRs. I think would be the better play here. But the idea is that you save one of Rem's Echoes at least, and of course Sid Raines' remaining Echo after his BT mode, so that after his BT mode you can sort of ping pong the turns between both of them and deny Serah turns. I think that approach is more ideal because if you do that, then after BT mode, Sid Raines will get more turns, and being the main DPS that allows you to quickly output good damage after his BT mode. That I think would be the ideal situation, but unfortunately mistakes were made and I didn't go down that path, but I'll cover more into that after the BT mode. Now Raines has two consecutive turns here because of the turn manipulation from Rem, and here I had to use his EX because Raines' overhead has worn off. If you did use EX earlier, as I mentioned, then I think what I would recommend is to actually go straight into BT mode here. Don't waste the force time turns. But I was forced to spend one force time turn just because I wanted to refresh the overhead. Anyway, don't waste more turns. You want to have 2 or 3 turns after the BT mode so that you can chain Echoes at the end and finish off the bosses. Now the key goal of BT mode is simply to bring both bosses obviously as low health as possible, but the ideal situation is to bring them both below 49% and bypass the gate. The whole concept behind this is that I wanted to sort of position myself where I've gone through the HP gates. All 3 characters have Echoes and all 3 characters have BT plus, so that the final sort of 40% of the boss's health can be simply completed by chaining Echoes. Anyway, as Sid Raines is sort of bringing the bosses to the 49% threshold and below, just quick mention about the setup and alternatives. I think Rem and Sid Raines are the core here. The third party member actually has a lot of flexibility. I think the only key requirement is that the third party member will ideally be some form of support, with strong auras. But it really doesn't have to be Serah. Another good alternative would be Garnet, and I think Garnet would maybe even be a better choice than Serah here, mainly because Garnet also gives the Brave Refund from her BT aura, and she also of course gives the off-turn attack to help supplement damage during Sid Raines BT mode. Another good choice will also be either Ursula or Quina. Because of their BT auras, you don't really have to worry about damage, you are just sort of guaranteed maximum damage anyway. But I didn't use them because I was thinking of saving them for later stages. Finally, Iris I think is also another good example. Iris is also good because she can also help you charge the force gauge from her potion pass. And her BT aura also makes the enemy's attack and max brave stat becomes 0, which makes the 70% force gauge attack very harmless overall. Like I said, there's a lot of flexibility there, but you want your core, which is Rem and Sid Raines, to be as fully built as possible. So both of them in this run has 5/5 ultimate weapons, but Serah doesn't have an ultimate weapon because I don't have a bow. Okay, so coming to the post BT mode phase, with the remaining turns in force time, you just want to chain echoes. The approach I took here is to have one echo on each character and have each character use their echoes. As I mentioned earlier in the video, I think this is a bit less optimal. Maybe the better approach is to have Serah use both of her echoes before Raines BT mode, and then on this phase of the fight, simply ping pong turns between Rem and Sid Raines. At 99% force gauge bonus, both Rem and Sid Raines will absolutely melt the bosses at the end. Here I think I did another mistake with Serah. I sort of decided to use her wound because I was thinking of reapplying some debuffs so I get her auras back. I think this is a terrible choice because wound does terrible damage and I sort of wasted one force time turn, and I don't think I need the rest of the auras anyway. Or at the very least, gaining the auras from having the debuffs up doesn't outweigh the loss of DPS, I feel. So don't do what I did. Don't give Serah any turns, just alternate turns between Rem and Sid Raines. Luckily though, I thought that this would be a run ender, but Rem and Sid Raines does so much damage that they easily finishes off the boss even at this range. Sid Raines just took boss A from like 30% plus health to 3%. So really, the main drawback here is that he only had one turn after his BT mode, which is really a shame. And yes, I'm doing 1 brave damage per hit, which is why I mentioned the debuffs actually doesn't really matter. But as you can see, even with 1 brave damage, I'm still capping on HP damage, and that's because of the BT auras that I stacked up. I thought that I failed to finish off the boss, but the follow-up attack came in and victory was obtained. Anyway, I hope this video has been helpful, and if you enjoyed the content, do leave a like, comment and subscribe because it really helps a lot. Till then, I'll see you guys in the next D4D Stage. Bye!